We're back. Woo!
Oh,
Hype. See, there's some hype in the chat already. Excellent.
Yes.
yeah. It's been a minute for us. LessThan3NPC has been off the air for 8+ weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It's been like 2 months.
So it's time to bring it back on the show, where basically we talk about stuff that's maybe too hard to talk about while we play video games, but maybe also just because our brain power isn't there to handle it. So there's also that.
Yeah.
My name's Kara. She, her pronouns. I make things for the internet. I also make things in terms of video production, freelancing in this world. So there's that. So, haha, bah. Next, Des.
Hi. I am Des. My pronouns are they, them, and I also make things on the internet, but of an adult variety. I work at an all-femme owned BDSM studio in Ohio, and I also make porn there. Um, it's great. I like being on the internet. Sometimes you need a break from the internet, and then you come back and you feel refreshed and rejuvenated and ready to talk to strangers again.
Mm-hmm.
Go.
My name is Joe. I also use they them pronouns. Currently, I do make things on the internet, but it's just through the streaming aspects of it. So I do stream some video games here and there. Big Destiny fan, big Gran Turismo fan, big race fan. If you catch either 2NPC or some of my streams, might notice I have a tendency to rant a little about F1. That's my main jam. I also work IRL as a lifeguard swim instructor. But for about 10 years, I was involved in the social work sector, specifically within sexual violence, as an educator and frontline crisis worker. So that's some of what I'm bringing to the table, but mostly here to talk about these things that we like to kind of bring up through LessThan3NPC and to hang out with my two friends.
Indeed. The topic of tonight, we've already blasted it around the internet, but we are talking burnout in all its forms.
Yeah.
That'll be our main topic tonight, and if the discussion leads into topic B, that'll be about procrastination.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're just gonna put that topic off.
I mean,
I think
that would
so.
be appropriate for that.
We just don't have the energy for it.
Mm.
We'll do it next time.
We'll do it next time.
All right. So first up, what's burnout? What do we classify burnout as, or what variations of it do we mention in day-to-day life?
I do know, from me, from like a social work clinical setting. Again, I don't have the definition ready to go, but I know generally it's a marked change in worldview, that you don't necessarily have the energy for stuff that you once did. So, first, in a social work setting, sometimes it can include not, being able to care for clients the same way they used to not be impacted by the work that you do as much, to just straight up not feeling like you have the energy to do what you once did. And I'll just throw in there too, it's not a permanent state per se. I just want to throw that out there, that burnout is not permanent. And it doesn't mean that you were not meant for whatever it was that you got burnt out on. But it can be an indicator that there is a imbalance happening in your life. So that's a little of kind of what I'd classify burnout as.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. Burnout can come from any repeated activity that takes from you energy-wise and does not give back in the same measure. So, like, something that's exhausting but maybe not fulfilling,
Mm-hmm.
or something that is continually exhausting and gives you no breaks.
Mhm.
Create burnout. Um, yeah, just a feeling of like, I can't do this anymore. I gotta
Hmm.
be done. I am
Mhm.
just operating at the bare minimum with whatever the thing is, whether
Yeah.
that's emotionally, physically, um, financially.
Hmm. And it will add to that. Um, I think there's a sort of scale of investment versus susceptibility to burnout. So the more invest, and this is true, especially true for like a social work setting, the more invested you were or are in a particular thing, the more susceptible you might be to burnout because you're more likely to throw yourself into something if you like it or invested in it, and subsequently burn yourself out. So that's also a thing, from an empathy side. Mostly, that's where it becomes a bit tricky again from like a social work setting. Empathic and hypersensitive people are more susceptible to burnout because they do tend to throw themselves into whatever it is a little bit more. And again, not to say that people who are not that are not invested, but um, just that susceptibility thing is a factor. But yeah, Kara, what about you? What are your thoughts? How would you define it?
Hmm. I think a lot of it that you've already both said is kind of accurate. Um, I think the one aspect of burnout that would be tagged on is more about the circumstances in which burnout occurs. So I know there was mention of a repetitive act of something, but there's also I think the element of repetitive just exposure to an environment.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have to be just a job. It can also be like burnout from certain groups of people in your life
Yeah,
or
for
burnout
real.
from I don't know, like I'm sure there's many different social dynamics of that, but it's just
And burnout from certain social media platforms.
yeah, that's very accurate too. Yeah, like any sort of the so it's not just doing an act of something, it can also be the exposure effects of a
Mm-hmm.
place or a group of people. Um I mean that's yeah, that's pretty much the only thing I would add to what I would define as
Yeah.
burnout.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I think it's good to include that because it's not, yeah, you're right. It's not just the professional area, it's the interpersonal, and
yeah.
it, it's going to be different for different people, right?
Right.
And it's important that we don't professionalize or like keep it to that capitalist kind of realm. Um, yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up.
But I like this what Helva Barton says. Absolutely. You can absolutely have burnout from gaming,
Hmm.
Oh, for sure.
right? Like there's like especially in MMOs, like you're talking about a very social event there. So I get that totally.
Just a side note: one of the most offensive things you can say to a Destiny player is that you should take a break from Destiny. Um,
Why is that?
well, just we have a habit of just burning through content in a week and then either complaining that there's nothing to do or complain that we don't love the game anymore or what have you. I'm sure it's true for other MMOs, but it's a bit of a meme within the Destiny community.
I see. I see.
Yeah, so I just thought I'd bring that up. But yeah, it's true. Any game where you start feeling like it's a chore to play, stop
Yeah.
playing. Stop
Mhm.
playing. It's the game's not going anywhere. I mean, if there's a seasonal pass or battle pass, whatever, you just might have to accept that you're going to miss out on some stuff, right? But the long term reality is that your mental health is suffering, right? If a game is feeling like a chore, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
needs to be
I
changed.
hate I hate anything with the concept of dailies.
Mm,
Like, you just have to log in and do, like, your daily quest, because then you just end up there for 2 hours. Like, what's
yeah.
the point? But yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I
uh,
go ahead
sorry,
first.
go ahead.
No, I was just saying if you feel so inclined, uh please share if you have raise your hand if you have experienced burnout.
I mean, yeah.
Where's
Yeah.
Pippin? Pippin's hands too.
Okay. Who has experienced professional burnout? Who has experienced social burnout?
Just put my feet up too.
No, I should put it up too. Okay, so
No, Twitch is free, Joe. Don't do that.
yeah.
That's right. You gotta pay for my feet. That's right.
Oh no.
My feet
Have
are
I taught you
tattooed too,
nothing?
so my feet are tattooed, so there's like I should charge extra, right?
You
I
should.
see, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I think why I did that was just to make sure that everyone's understanding here. We're not just like talking about this like frivolous theoretical circumstance.
Hmm.
I think we're all here to really identify that we've experienced something similar to the definitions that we just described.
Hmm.
Um, any anecdotes anyone would like to share off the top in terms of burnout situations?
I think I can share. I mean, a lot of my burnout is related to my previous work, so the amount of details I can give is very limited. But I can share sort of the experience of it in that setting. I can't speak too much to what it was about specifically, but I think for me, the burnout in that setting um, was really hard to detect at first. And I think that's something about burnout that people don't maybe realize or don't really recognize off the top. Um, is it's not a finite I'm burnt out, right? Well, at least it wasn't my case. What it was feeling tired, right, of it, and the way I responded to that was to throw myself deeper into it and get more invested into the work, get more invested into the coworkers, the clients, the expectations, I guess, I had of the evolving career. And the more I threw myself into it, the more I would get burnt out. And it became this cycle of it would take me everything I had to recharge for the next day. And it wasn't about feeling fresh and ready for the day. It was about having just enough energy to make it through the day. Um, and what that resulted in is it resulted in leaning on a lot of um, coping mechanisms that are ultimately unproductive in the long term. So leaning into stuff that would just allow me to numb, basically, and feeling like my self-care time was there was pressure on that self-care time, so I'd have to maximize it. So if I had, say, 16 hours between, like, again, I get come home at 5, I got work the next morning at 9, that time in between became pressure filled because I felt like I had to recharge for the next day. I was fearful of the next day of not
You're
having enough
going to
sleep.
relax, Joe.
Yeah, you're gonna relax hardcore, you're gonna do it correctly, and you're gonna be refreshed. And then I wasn't refreshed because the coping, there's a difference between coping and recharging, right? um, when you're coping, you're just kind of getting through a moment. When you're recharging, you're actually able to unplug from whatever it was that was draining you and fill those reserves somehow, right? um, I was only getting enough to get me through, prepared for the next day, right? And it just became that cycle that like joy was ripped out of all the things I was doing. Um, Video games, fantasy hockey, Formula One, anything I did to take care of myself. It was just monotonous. Um, so, I mean, that's my experience with burnout. I don't know if I want to throw it to Des or Kara.
Yeah. I've experienced lots of different kinds of burnout. I've definitely felt burnout from my job, especially if I'm not getting any sort of creative like leeway, like the ability
Mm-hmm.
to do something new or learn something new. Then I feel burnt out doing the same thing over and over again. And my business partner Alex is the same way. If we're doing the same thing for too long, like something's got to change it up, or else we're just not gonna want to do it anymore. And then the fact that we both own the business is then like scary because there's nobody telling us that we have to do it. Um, but the other, like, that sort of comes and goes. That feels like a sort of like, oh, okay, I got to do something else to recharge this part of my business mindset, or my creative mindset is burnt out, so I need to access something else so that I can use that for a while. And then that's just coping. But it's coping in like a long-term way, because I
Hmm.
can then recharge this part of my brain that wants to be creative in this way, and then I can do something else with this part of my brain. Um, the other thing I've experienced a lot is caretaker burnout.
Hmm.
Because I'm a person that likes people, and I like to make sure that people are okay, and like things like acts of service and gifts and that sort of thing. Those are all like my love language. Um, but uh, being put into a position where you need to take care of someone else is quite different, and it's also something that I have been like put into positions of being in, like being the caretaker, not necessarily with my permission. And that will burn me out faster than anything,
Hmm.
because like I love people and I love taking care of people, but I can only do it without support for like minimal amounts of time. I don't know. I just got a short fuse when it comes to that sort of thing. Um, Otherwise, I'm just not taking care of myself.
Hmm.
My whole life becomes about taking care of that other person, which isn't fair.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. My burnout was self-inflicted. Um, Definitely, because I run my own business. So there's no one making those decisions except for me. But there's obviously pressures to try and uh, have a successful business. I mean, shit, let alone successful, just managed.
Yeah.
Just a business. Yeah.
Just
Food
a
on the
business is
table.
enough.
Yeah.
Which is, kind of how I've been skirting by for 10 plus years. Um, but yeah, so and I partially joke about self-infliction because it's just like, well, I still have to make my own ends meet, like I have to pay my bills and I have to pay for my living and all the other things that come with our very complicated existence in our modern times. Um, but it for me, it was like getting to a point where I was booking so much work, but I was not enforcing my rate with a lot of people, so I wasn't making as much money, but I was still working. And um, the feeling that I kind of associate to burnout is that constantly like tripping up a step. Like if you
Mm,
know that feeling of like you catch yourself when you're falling up a set of stairs,
Hmm.
it's like that, but all the time. So it's like you would get one task done. Like I'm a very big list maker. I like making lists because it gets the thoughts out of my brain and I know that I won't forget about it as soon as I write it down. And so I know that I'm getting into burnout stages when I start looking at those lists in a professional sense. And it feels like as soon as I cross one off, five more things are on that list and it
Hmm.
just keeps skipping up down the line.
Hmm.
And I'll get four things done and then all of a sudden there's like five things left, but they're big things and you can't tackle all of them at the same time. Um and I know someone out there will be like, well, this is all about time management skills. And I'll be like,
And
yes,
you
actually,
punch
you're
in the
right.
face.
You're actually right, for the most part. But there are some other variables that float around that impact, how we live our lives today, and what's expected of us. And I think that's a huge element of like I don't I do honestly believe there's no such thing as only external reinforced burnout. It's a melding. You have to be
Hmm.
able to manage your own requirements in life, as well as influencing and discussing with other people the expectations that they have of you.
Yeah.
Um, there's no like I'm really not in the ballpark of everyone of when you have the mindset of, well, it's just everyone else is causing my burnout. That's not true because
Hmm.
not everyone can read your mind. And not everyone can know what you're doing in your life, and not everyone knows about all your personal shit, and not everyone else knows about the circumstances that's going on.
Yeah.
So this is where communication really obviously comes into effect in building that skill set. Um, and but it's hard. It's really, really hard
Hmm.
because especially when you're burned out, like this is the other thing. There's a really thin line or gray zone when we talk about burnout, and especially if you have mental health issues. So if you have some mental illness, there's a real challenge there when you start like the dynamic balance of what is burnout versus what is your specific condition causing more fluctuations in something.
Hmm.
Um and so that's also a very large challenge because over my life there have been times when I've definitely been burned out. Um but it was also exponentially worsened by depression,
Hmm.
but I didn't know that at the time.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, that's an interesting dynamic as well. But I feel like I've been talking for way too long. Someone else take over about some other topic.
Well, Kara, I was gonna say something you were talking about with regards to like there was a thing, then there was five more things. I think for me, and then you went on and talked about how mental illness intersects with this. And I think for me, like anxiety is my primary mental illness, and a thing that I noticed that happened when my anxiety intersected with my burnout was I was actively seeking something to be anxious about that was upcoming. So whether that was a meeting, whether that was an upcoming workshop, whether that was an upcoming crisis shift or whatever, I would find something to place in front of me as a thing to focus on and be anxious about. Not to prepare for, not to get ready for, but to feel that was looming over me, right?
Mm,
So I think that's how, like for me, that's how my mental illness was intersecting with my burnout was, and again, it was a weird coping thing. I guess I guess in a way, what I was doing was I was trying to find one thing to focus on rather than focus on everything else that I was feeling, right? Um, but what I was doing was I was focusing on one thing and building anxiety around it, making it all of my world, making it everything I was going to focus on,
mhm,
right? Um, and then when that went away, I wouldn't do anything to process how it went. I would find something to feel anxious about. Um, and this is something I was doing a lot of work on in therapy and stuff like that, was like leaning into my catastrophizing as a coping mechanism, because of my anxiety. So I don't know, I'm glad you brought that up, but yeah.
mhm, totally. Yeah, no, it's different, and I think that's such a huge element of complications as well as it's like anything else that has to do with how our moods are affected in our lives is like there's no one way that burnout manifests itself,
Hmm.
you know? Um, for instance, I have not been in a situation where I've been required to be a caretaker. So, I cannot relate to that circumstance.
Hmm.
But during COVID, I was like doing all of the groceries for my grandparents,
Yeah.
and there was this slippery slope where I was freaking out because of the pandemic because, we know film and the arts and it just went nil, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it t- utterly and completely stopped. Like hard stop, March 13th, 2020.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I didn't have a job for at least 7 months or 6 months. And when you look at that and people were starting to do this thing where, well, Kara's not busy. Kara doesn't have anything to do, so Kara can fill the void
Hmm.
of
Yeah.
some of these things that people need help with. And what that eventually led to was a certain time in the summer there where even though I didn't have my job going on, it just like global issues, family issues, caretaking responsibilities,
Mhm.
freaking out about going to a grocery store because everyone's going to get COVID, la da 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 da. It was paralleled to a point where my brain couldn't keep up anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And then again, like we said, and then that also got amplified by one of the worst depressive episodes I've ever had.
Mhm.
So when I sit here and I think back to that time, and I'm like, okay, well, what was actually burning me out? The burnout was the lack of any sort of understanding of people communicating with one another about the state of being. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I am actually good at this. Okay. What I'm saying is that I now understand why sometimes burnout feels like a very um you become overwhelmed with responsibilities, or you
Mhm.
become disinterested in the responsibilities that you usually have some investment in. For the most part, is because we have a challenge expressing to people and then people accepting that we're having problems,
Mhm.
right? It's a combination. It's like an
Mhm.
equation of that. Um like I should have been able to tell the people in my life and be like, "Hey, I can't do that this week because I've been doing this thing for 5 months and I have no way of checking on myself. So,
Yeah.
here it is." And
Hey
then
guys, guess
them.
what? I'm sick of it.
Oh, yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, exactly. But then the flip side of that, someone saying, "Oh, I recognize that. Is there a way that we can work together to either lessen that responsibility or we can tag team it?" Or so, like, there's lots of solutions to these
Mhm.
problems. Um, Instead of being resulted with, "Well, I don't see this as a big thing at all, and you're just pathetic for not doing it."
Yeah.
Like that's obviously the far extreme other side of absolutes, for how people can respond to burnout. Um, but yeah, it's a challenge because you're feeling like, for me anyway, a lot of it was, well, I don't want to be perceived as weak, or
Mhm.
I don't want to be perceived as incapable, or um, I don't want to be perceived as not being independent enough to
Mhm.
manage these things. And that comes with a lot of self-induced pain, like shame
Mhm.
on what you can keep on your plate. Like, how many things can you keep going, how many plates can you keep spinning before one falls, right?
Yeah.
And our culture doesn't really want to see the plate falling. That's an
No.
embarrassment.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up the pandemic because we just I mean, we're still moving through it, right? It's probably tapering off, but and this is something related to Hespiel brought up in chat. I hope I said that right, Hespiel. Um, but just mentioning that, like having to drop a contract because there's coming back from a pandemic is hard in and of itself, and I think it's I don't know. I think we have largely fucked up as a society because I think we've just gone back to work or tried to go back to normal without acknowledging what we've gone through, and the fact that there are millions of people who died because of COVID, and um, that transition would be difficult too. To go back to trying to feel comfortable in groups again, trying to feel comfortable going out for dinner. Um, I don't know. I just think that we've kind of glossed over the recovery phase, and it's connected to some of that external pressure, the care that you're talking about, where it's like other people's expectations have a way of getting in, right? And poisoning our own sense of self worth, you know?
Well, and on top of it too, it's more about an assessment of what people's values are, right? Like, there are a
Mhm.
ton of humans out there on this planet in charge of many things that operate our world and our systems, who saw the value of human return to work as purely that.
Mhm.
They didn't see the COVID as some sort of epidemic. It was just this event. The event is now over.
Mhm.
Let's go. Right. So
Yeah.
the value that they hold isn't necessarily, well, I'm good, from their perspective, it's just like, well, I'm going to hold your hand. We're going to start this now and then let's go. Like,
Mhm.
there wasn't, um, it's not an emotional process that is very kind to certain types of humans.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's a challenge, right? Like, that there's going to be a lot of people out there who just, like, their main priority during the entire pandemic was like, how do we keep the economy going? How do we keep, new progress going? How do we keep all these like supply chain systems working, right?
Mhm.
And that
Yeah.
was a huge pressure for them. Um, but it's when you think about how, there's more the empathic side of people who sat there and really thought about the effects of what happened during the pandemic, and like,
Mhm.
what are the results of that? What does it matter, to our friends and family and network when they've lost so many people, and actually sit with that and
Yeah.
analyze what that means.
Yeah. And like when you're doing the work thing, like the work life thing day to day, for a long period of time, you build your own coping mechanisms to help deal with burnout during regular times.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm going to do this thing on the weekend. I'm going to make sure that I have my work phone turned off after blah. But then the pandemic happened and everybody's situation changed so rapidly, we lost all of those coping mechanisms. Like,
Mhm.
we just forgot how to people. We forgot how to be, like, to have any sort of work life balance because everybody was at home and their computers were at home and they were just working constantly. And then, forgetting how to socialize during regular day-to-day situations. Like,
Mhm.
you can just stay when you can just stay home and be a hermit goblin and not put on any pants all day and still get your job done. Like, putting on clothes and then going and having to interact with a bunch of people that you only know peripherally through your job, and
Mhm.
like just the exhaustion of small talk. Um, like, it adds a lot more to like what your previous situation was.
Mhm.
Sitting at home being a hermit goblin person with no pants on, doing your work all the time.
Mhm.
It's different. So it's going to take time for everybody to adjust to it being not that, because it was long enough that it fucked us. If it had only been like a few weeks or even a few months, I feel like people would have hopped back in because
Yeah.
you remember your coping mechanisms. You're not unused to using them. But because it was like 2 years before anybody started going back to the office really, um it you forget how to be a people. And
Mhm.
now burnout just happens even within a few months.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too, I kind of want to bring up is the fact that like it was long enough that I think that a new way to push boundaries evolved within the working world for folks that do have like a sort of more regular salary job or even an hourly job, um, because you're working at home, you were seen as available 24/7, right? So if you maybe you were sick, right? You were actually sick, not COVID sick, but you were sick, but you were, so you couldn't necessarily go into work. It's like, well, you, you can still be by a computer, right? So still answer some emails, just still do the work. You're at home anyways, right? Who cares? So I just think that it broke down some of those hard boundaries that we might have had pre-pandemic, where it was like, my work phone is off. I'm at home. Do not fucking call me, right? The reality was like, well, you've been home all day, so I'm just going to call you at 7 p.m. And harass you for not answering your emails all day, even though it was your day off, right? I just think that like, and here's the capitalist rant I have. Um, Capitalism is so I think insistent on maximizing hours, right? And at first it was like, oh, this is a huge disruption. But then I think there was this evolution that happened over the pandemic where it was like, oh, we have access to them 24/7. you know, they have no reason not to respond because they're working from home, which is a bonus. So we get to email them whenever we want to, right?
Yeah.
And now we have stuff like quiet quitting and I don't know, a whole host of other things where they're manufacturing these things to be angry at employees about. Um, where I mean, I guess that stuff existed before, but now I don't know. I just feel like there's more ways that boundaries are being pushed, which does not help the burnout situation, right? Um, because shortened hours, working from home has all kinds of benefits, but now that's being seen as like, well, you're working from home, so we'll take away some salary, right? Um,
Yeah.
and
Even though it's cheaper for most companies when you work from home because they don't
yeah,
have to fucking rent the office space.
yeah, because they're seeing an opportunity to pay their employees less, and that's what they want. They want to pay their employees as little as possible. Most capitalists would prefer not paying their employees at all. So, anyways, rant over. I'm gonna have some
We went
whiskey.
a whole 35 minutes into our first episode back before we got a Joe capitalist rant.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't like it.
impressed.
I don't.
But yeah, no, I utterly agree. Like the whole even concept of burnout is a problem created by capitalism.
Mm-hmm,
Because if it weren't for the fact that we needed to work all the time and like just be, that hustle culture, that like constantly on my grind, I never sleep, blah blah blah, like nothing
mm-hmm.
will burn you out faster than fucking hustle culture.
Absolutely. If
Like,
pe- if people want a Twitter account or Instagram account that might be the balm to all this, I highly recommend following the Nap Ministry on Instagram. I think they have a Twitter, um, but they had a post a little while back where it just says, "Let that ship sink. It's not on you to save that ship. Um, if you're an employee of a company and someone's begging you to take that shift or whatever, don't let the ship sink." And
yeah,
I don't know, it was a life changing thing to have integrated into my brain. It's like, again, I don't want to say like for Kara and for Des, like freelance work is its own beast and stuff like that. But I think if you have those external forces putting the weight of the organization on your shoulders, let the ship sink. You know,
yeah,
depending on where you are in the organization, it's fine. Life will go on without you, and that's the thing I've had to learn too. So
yeah. Because at the end of the day, if they didn't want to be so short staffed all the time, they would have hired more people. And
yep,
if people aren't taking the job, it's because they're not paying good enough.
yep, yep. So let the ship sink. It's not your responsibility to save the ship.
Bye.
Yeah, no. I don't know if I agree with that 100%. There's something ticking at the back of my brain that I'm kind of like, I don't know. It's like on a film set, if someone didn't try to help fix a problem
Mm-hmm.
and you let the ship sink, then the whole crew's let down. I don't know. It's I don't know. I don't know. I have to sit on
It's
that. I have to think about that a bit.
I
yeah. I
mean,
mean,
it helps that like film crews are made usually of people who are freelancers who can't accept that as a like
mm-hmm,
culture. Like, because if you work retail, it's easy to accept that culture because you work for a huge
Mm,
corporation and you're not hurting
sure.
anybody.
Yeah.
But like
yeah.
the film industry is made up of freelancers, so that it almost doesn't apply. Like unless you're I don't know, I guess unless you're union, I don't know how union works.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
So
different. Like union
it's
stuff and indie
different.
stuff is also different. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I like it, and that's why I tried to throw that qualifier in there around freelance stuff. It's a different way of working, um,
Mhm.
but I know, especially from the NAP ministry perspective, they're really focused on marginalized workers, especially like Black workers in the United States. Like that's I think where a lot of the activism is coming from. Um, I guess non-white workers really from again just try and get that marginalized white supremacy focus brought into the conversation around capitalism because white supremacy and capitalism are intersect and interwoven like you wouldn't believe. Um, but I think it's really referencing that lower to middle class salaried worker or hourly worker or what have you, where there's that pressure from management to sacrifice your free time to your free hours to whatever. Again, all those memes where what was the meme that made it way the way it's rounds, where it's like my manager at my funeral with his hand on his coffin saying, "Do you know how short-staffed we're today?" You know,
Mm.
like that sort of rhetoric. Like people have like there was one Twitter thread where somebody was like, "I have to put down my dog," and their manager was like, "Can you reschedule that? Can you put down your dog a different day? We're really
Yeah,
short-staffed today." You know, like that's
absolutely fucking not.
yeah, that's the kind of thing that particular account is trying to like call attention to, because that is rampant, that kind of stuff. The
Mm-hmm.
stuff you mentioned about like doing your job, that's not really what they're advocating for, you know.
Right.
They're trying to push against that like that urgency capitalism, you know, that if you know um, line worker number 3 don't come into work, the whole organization is going to crumble, you know.
Oh, yeah, like, yeah, okay. I
Yeah.
understand that point. Yeah. Like, because as a independent freelance entrepreneur, technically, technically that's what I
As
am.
a small business owner.
I'm a very micro business owner. Um, I am both the boss and the employee.
Yeah.
And so I understand very, very much so if you don't do the work, you don't get the pay, right? That's a direct line. There's
Yeah,
no whirly, ups and downs about that. It's like
yeah,
Hmm.
if you don't do the work, you don't get paid. So that's pretty understandable. So, but when I talk about burnout in particular, it's like, um, and what you're saying about, what makes an organization or what makes, the value of your time and your free time and all these other things. For me, and I'm sure a lot of other people out there, because the more and more that our systems turn to gig economies, that's what a lot more people are being, I don't want to say forced into, but I
Hmm.
I feel like part of it's forced into and then part of it's choice. Um and in those circumstances, when I wake up, I don't go, well, today I don't really feel like working today,
Hmm.
even though my client is expecting something from me. But ultimately, sometimes what'll happen is I say yes to too many people, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, under circumstances, they all pile on and be like, "Oh, actually, we need it now."
Yeah.
And that causes my burnout that takes so long to recover from, because sometimes I'll put in like 4 18-hour days in a row just to meet that demand,
Hmm.
right? Um, and there's no way that and I've gotten a little bit better at it though, is like asking for more time for some people.
Hmm.
Because here's the other thing. Here, okay, so maybe I can't talk about like the large organization of the thing, but I can talk about independent stuff. You are allowed to write to a client that you need more time.
yes.
What? Really?
I know, it's shocking.
Shocking.
Um, Deadlines do not actually equal dead something. Deadlines are just a really powerful word to make people scared about getting something finished in a certain amount of time.
Hmm.
No one is actually going to die because you didn't deliver on something. Um, but it's more about the societal and individual interpretation of what that means. So what we say is like professional integrity. Are you going
Hmm.
to deliver on something because you said you were going to deliver on something, right? And are you missing that quote unquote deadline because you're just like, nah, I think I'll play video games today? Or are you not able to deliver on it because you have been working for 4 days at 18 hours a day, and then one of them slipped through the cracks and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
So there's these dynamics, but to a client, none of that matters.
No, absolutely
Right?
not.
To a client, it's just, oh, you've broken this professional promise that you've given me.
Yeah.
And well, then I'm not going to rely on you for the next project. And there's potential for losing a client at that point.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the forces at work when we talk about having burnout as small business owners, where there's no real flexibility or compassion about that. So it's weird though, because you would think in the case of being your own boss, oh, I have compassion for you. I feel so bad for you that you're burnt out. Oh no, tough you, because there's no one there
I'm
to
just picturing Kara doing that to herself in the mirror.
like, yeah. I'm just saying there's absolutely no circumstance in which if you are like a self business that there's anywhere where you're going to have like a sit down mental health break with someone who's going to help you with your problems,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's no one really there for that. Um, so I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you have the circumstances to have individuals to help you with troubled times and workloads and all these other things, you're allowed to set boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
I love it when I email a client off hours, because sometimes I'm working weird times. And a bounce back email says, I only respond to emails from 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yep,
Respect that.
respect that. I extremely encourage people to have that as a thing.
Yeah.
Um
You
and
would have been
then
proud of me this weekend,
oh,
Kara.
do tell.
I have taken over a project for Alex because she is out of town. The like third person we have on that project is not like in our company. It's another person we're hiring.
Mhm.
And they contacted me over the weekend and they wanted to jump on a call on Sunday and I was like, "Nope. We could call on Monday.
Yep.
This
Woo!
is
Good
my
job, guys.
weekend."
Good
Yes.
job.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess like that's kind of the thing too. Is just like I know that a lot of people have like top down pressure on themselves for these things, but you have to empower yourself to say the boundaries that you're setting for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
right? Like an employer has no grounds to terminate your employment just because you don't do blank amount of overtime hours. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that's a reasonable cause to fire someone.
It is in the US.
Is it now?
Ohio is a fire anytime for any reason state.
Well, and again, not to get all anti-capitalist, but the reality is they they can totally find other reasons
Oh,
Yeah,
to terminate
sure.
your
in
contract, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
insubordination, like not a team player,
Not a
like,
team
"Oh, we
player.
found your role is redundant."
Suddenly there's a magnifying glass on your career. It's like you were a minute late 3 days in a row. We just can't have you on the team anymore. Sorry.
Mhm.
Like, yeah. I mean, I get your point, but like they find ways,
Mm.
But
because if
that's why
they
you
fire,
also gotta know your worth. 'Cause
yeah,
if you're the only person in that room that knows how to do the job you're doing, you know exactly how much pull you have.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Know your
That's
worth.
fair. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'm just laughing at Paji here. Scotty said to Jordy, never let a captain know how long the job will really going to take.
That's
Oh,
real.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
For sure. I don't care if I know I can get it done in 6 hours.
yeah. Well, and Lower Decks did a thing. Buffer time. Buffer time is essential because buffer time is self-care time. Buffer time is like recharge time.
Buffer time is also, what if something goes fucking wrong?
Yeah, right.
I would rather come in early and be like, "Look how fast I got this done," than be late because some unforeseen circumstance came up and now I can't get the project done on time.
Yeah, yeah. And if you go from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing for 8 hours straight, guess what? You're gonna be fucking burnt out, right? Um, I mean, so many studies have been done that like what people only do 4 hours of work a day on their 8 hour days. Like it's something like you get 50% efficiency regardless of how many hours they work, right? And people who work 6 or less tend to work more for that period of time than people who work 8 hours, right? So again, what do I know? I'm just an angry anti-capitalist with
Sorry
no
if I
money.
seem distracted, but my Muppet is being very whiny tonight because he
Mm,
is not used to me sitting and talking on the computer.
your
Moose
void
is feeling
Muppet.
podcast burnout. He doesn't know how to not
Here.
be the center of attention for 2 hours.
Mm,
Mm,
yeah.
Anyways,
but okay, well, let's shift gears a bit. So we've talked a lot about what burnout is and experiences of burnout, different forms of it. Um, how do we resolve it? What do we think needs to change, or what can be a variation of different behaviors that can be acted upon to maybe avoid burnout or what?
uh, and I did just see what Xandra said. I think the unique hell of being a caretaker is that stakes have real consequences if you don't get them done. That's
Hmm.
super real for caretaker burnout because it is very hard to set boundaries with caretaker burnout. Because
Yeah.
if you are the caretaker of someone, even if you're not the only caretaker and just you are particularly burnt out with that situation, it's so hard, especially during like something like a mental health crisis, to look at someone and say, "You're a burden.
Hmm.
I am exhausted from taking care of you."
Yeah.
Like that for a person who needs taken care of, that's so damaging and that's so oh, oh god, I guess I'm a burden. I've exhausted this person I love beyond
Yeah.
the point where they're doing okay mentally. Like it's the worst kind of burnout to try to like advocate for yourself for because you feel so beholden. Like cuz if you're caring for a person, ostensibly you like them or you have
Hmm.
some sort of relation to them that makes you feel obligated. Like even if it's a job, caretaker burnout's a thing, you know? Like, if your
Hmm.
job is taking care of people. And even then that's like a double-edged sword. It's like, "Oh, I need to if I don't go to my job that day, then that means,
Hmm.
like, see your nurse or something. The nurses will be short-staffed, which means patients will suffer, and
Yeah.
also, I'm not gonna get paid that day." Like, caretaker burnout is some of the hardest burnout to establish boundaries with.
Hmm.
Um and it's sort of just a case by case basis. Like, you also have to recognize that if you're taking care of someone and you have nothing filling your cup, then nothing's going to come out of it. You're not going to be able to take care of that person in the way that they need because you're
Hmm.
not taking care of you in the way that you need.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of it. However, you have to navigate that. Like, just continuing to do the thing past burnout doesn't make the fact that you're not doing a good job because you're burned out any different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's very hard. But
It is.
in regards to avoiding burnout, working in regular breaks is important. Regular short breaks, even if it's like, and I'm talking down to like 10-minute breaks to taking a long weekend, like maybe every month or every other month or whatever you can afford, and like
Hmm.
taking a big break sometime during the year, just so you have like all manner of increasing breaks when you like before you think you need them,
Hmm.
ideally.
Yeah. It's kind of come up through the conversation we've already been having, but I do want to circle back to the. Oh God, I use circle back. I do want to return to the thought of boundary setting. I think that can be hard because so much of society is set up to sabotage boundary setting and to see it as a negative thing. Um, but therapy, I seriously like actually going to therapy and um, undoing trauma that gets in the way of your boundary setting, whatever that is, whatever it is that kind of makes you feel bad for setting boundaries or hinders that process in whatever way. Finding a way to tease that out and figure that out so that you can feel confident in setting a boundary is huge for attending that burnout. And again, it's not easy. It's often really hard work. It's often hurtful work because you're opening old wounds. But I think it can be really, really hard to set a boundary if you don't feel like you're worth having one. And that sense of worth tends to need some figuring out. And I speak from my experience. That's been some of the work that I've been doing, that I have a right to set boundaries. And this is probably in more of the extreme cases, but there is a phrase, and I should know who it's attributed to, but I don't, unfortunately. But you can't heal in the same places that made you sick, is the other reality of it. It doesn't mean that you can't return to that work. It doesn't mean you can't go back to whatever that was. But sometimes it means leaving, whatever that happens to have been, so that you can do that healing work. You can do that work, that practice, really, to set boundaries, to feel confident in having them, and to know that you deserve them. So I think that's some of the things. And I think also, in terms of coping with burnout, is that your coping mechanisms sometimes need to change. So it means taking a break from something, taking a risk on something else. I know for myself, I'll just use video games as an example. Video games have always been a bit of a self-care thing, or a huge part of self-care for me, but I've noticed that there's ways in which I throw myself into video games that's unhealthy, or not unhealthy, but not productive in terms of self-care. That I'll lean into video games too much. I'm not getting anything out of them. I'm not enjoying what I'm playing. What I'm playing actually actively feels stressful, but I'm leaning into it because it's what I've always done. So in those moments, I've noticed that, like, I need to play a different video game. I need to, even if it's still within the video game realm, I need to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
If you make little changes in whatever it is, that can help too. So I don't know, Kara, any thoughts?
Oh, I have lots of thoughts. I have lots of ideas about how burnout can get kicked to the curb. But I think there's a few points that I want to take focus on. One would be, and of course, this is dependent on different circumstances, either some privileges that you might have, or financial security, or social security, like all those other things. It's not a bad thing to ask to move to different departments or locations within an organization.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you got a job based off of a certain set of qualifications doesn't mean that you can't find something else within that organization that will be a good transfer.
Yeah.
Now, that can be difficult in some circumstances, right? Like if we're hyper specialized in something, obviously you can't just take on accounting, right? Like that's
I don't know what you're
not.
talking about. I could be an
Yeah,
accountant
Seems easy. It's
tomorrow.
just a calculator and
well,
punching
yeah, duh.
numbers, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I have Google.
yeah, exactly. No, but there are certain circumstances of employment that you can find different roles in different organizations by asking the people in charge of those companies, and some business owners will be more than happy to accommodate.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is you don't know unless you go ask.
Yeah.
So that'd be the first thing that I would say. Um, Another would be to set, and I think it's pulling off of what Joe was saying too a lot, is just like confirming your process for boundary setting.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing, and here's, I guess, my anti-capitalist perspective, is that the
Woo!
machine will always go. As
Yeah.
long as we exist in this system, the machine will always go. So if you're not willing to look out for yourself, no one will.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that a lot of people exist in a space where they're like, I need someone to tell me that I need to help, or I need someone to identify that I need help. But the ultimate reality is, and I'm just such a strong advocate for being able to express yourself, because no one is a mind reader. If they do tell you they're a mind reader, they are lying and stealing your money.
Yep.
So,
Or stealing your emotional energy.
oh, that
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where if you're able to sit down, go through the process, investigating what it is, like even just making a list. Like I did this recently and I made a list, just 4 items. I was like, what makes me feel good? And it was like making movies, playing video games, being in nature, and driving. Like
Mhm.
those were my
You
what?
forgot tiny hands, but okay.
That cursed image that Hap created is haunting me
Brilliant
right now.
art,
Oh no.
groundbreaking.
Mhm.
Groundbreaking. Um shit. Yeah. So going through the process of finding out what makes you happy, applying it. Xander, you were part of this too, weren't you? I know it now. Um uh yeah, so it's about navigating, okay, I need to know what are the things that are going to make me able to recover, recharge my batteries, so on and so forth.
Mhm.
Identifying that for yourself and then seeing how can that translate to a professional environment, and does that mean, hey, I need to go down to part-time work, or does it mean I need to go up to full-time work? Like everyone's circumstances are different. And also too, navigating the people that you work with. Sometimes personalities don't mesh, and that happens all the time, and that doesn't actually default to bad workplace.
Mhm.
Okay, it might just lead to, there needs to be some finessing about who are the people who are reporting to who. And I think it's an employer's responsibility, whether or not that holds true to anyone's perspective, to try and help massage that, to try and make it so that there's a place for people to feel like they fit and belong. Um, but that's always a challenge. I get it. I understand. That's a big ask. Okay. I'm aware. Um, and then burnout also can be remedied with sleep. You need to sleep, kids.
Sleep
You
is important.
you gotta sleep.
So
It's
important.
and I understand there are factors that can lead to circumstances where you can't get more sleep and it's harder to get sleep, especially restful sleep, like actual REM sleep. Um,
You saying that just remembered a totally different kind of burnout that we did not mention.
oh,
Parental burnout.
Mm.
oh, that's because I mean, yeah, no,
None of us are parents, but still,
everyone,
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
you saying the not getting any sleep and not being able to get more sleep, that reminds me
yeah,
of, like, new parents.
Yeah.
that's totally fair. That's definitely a factor of burnout. Um, yeah, no, I if there's anything that I've figured out for myself, and it's quite a detrimental thing to my ambitions in my career, because it kind of squanders the reality of how filmmaking is done, where people are minimum 12-hour days to anywhere up to 17 or 18-hour days. Um, because my brain in collection with depression, I don't function well unless I get 8 hours or more.
Mhm.
Now, if I lean into like 11 hours of sleep, now that's danger zone too. That's too much sleep.
So somewhere
Um,
between, like, 8 and 10.
8 and 10,
That's, like,
more on
the
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 8 side, but yeah, it's
the
kind of
butter
like
zone.
my body and my mind needs that shutdown time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, because the burnout feeling, the constant feeling like I'm tripping upstairs goes slowly away when I rest properly.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, like, your body heals when you sleep. Your
Mhm.
brain replaces all of the chemicals that it needs in order to make the neurons connect and give you the more happy chemicals while you're doing things, and, like, we as people need sleep.
Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, Hess is saying there's a documentary that we should go find.
Like, 2007.
I think I've
Who
seen
needs
it.
sleep?
Who needs
There was
sleep?
also
I need sleep.
there was also a very poignant Star Trek episode in TNG about this too, where Dr. Crusher
Oh,
had an impassioned discussion with Jean-Luc Picard about how the stress that they were feeling, or the detriments they were feeling, was because they weren't dreaming,
right.
which was REM sleep.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, anyways,
If anybody knows Burnout, it's Jean-Luc Picard.
yeah,
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
The man worked himself to death.
Yeah. Um,
but
but
I think. So go ahead. Kara.
no. I'm just saying, like, it's a thing that a lot of people bypass all the time. They're like,
Mhm.
yeah, I'll get more sleep later. I'll bank hours later. I'm like, that's not
Yep.
how it works.
Mhm.
It's consistency.
Yeah, yeah. I was just gonna say the first thing that goes out the window when you're experiencing burnout is the fundamental physiological stuff that we need to do to take care of our meat sacks. So sleep, hydration, eating, hygiene, right? These are all fundamental things that we need to do to take care of the meat sack, that are the first things to go when we're experiencing burnout, because it quickly becomes an internal process that lives up here in our brains, and kind of in like in our souls and our hearts and stuff like that. Um, but we, I mean, I know for myself, the eating took a downturn, became irregular. The sleep didn't happen. Um, the hygiene kind of did. I have eczema, so I have to keep up on the hygiene stuff. Otherwise, things go really bad for me really quickly. Um, but it's still what became irregular, right? Um, and those are the things that really we can't not exist in our meat suits, right? So if we're not taking care of them, then it can be really hard to function on a regular basis. Now, it's really important that that kind of like physical self-care is, there's a really slippery slope into body shaming and fat phobia and all that kind of other stuff. So it's very like, you throw that out there with some major caveats. Um, it's a hard thing to navigate just because how intertwined those things are, but that fundamental physical self-care is a huge part of it that I think is important to keep tabs on, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will say, all this talk about sleep has reminded me of one of the things that happens to me that indicates to me that I am too stressed out or I am getting burnt out. Is frequent stress naps.
Hmm.
Yep. Yep.
My sometimes like I get task paralysis and I need to go take a nap right now. Whatever's happening, I need to go take a nap right this minute.
It's like a reset button for the brain.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, nope, I am too overwhelmed. Maybe some of it will be gone when I wake up, or like my brain is just not equipped to handle it, so it needs to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Sleep mode activated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that is a good point. Knowing your yellow flags.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's also very important. Like,
Well,
Yeah.
knowing your yellow flags, and then how do you remedy them, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to identify them, but
Mm-hmm.
it's more important to be like, okay, if I'm getting task paralysis, I need to know that I need to have a 30-minute power nap,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
lots of times I
And
just
maybe
let
that's
myself
just
have that nap.
what you have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My thing now that I'm realizing is I get task paralysis. Guess what? I'm getting up and I'm doing a 15-minute walk outside,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
right? It's that task isn't going to get done better or more efficiently within the 15 minutes that I'm gone.
Mm-hmm.
But the movement aspect for my body is more of a benefit. And this is
Mm-hmm.
what I'm finding out. See, what I'm learning is if I go to sleep, I'm going to sleep for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't do that some days. That's
Yeah.
not an option.
Yeah.
Right. So it's about how to navigate, how am I going to really process the stress so that it doesn't lead to burnout and then it actually can be mitigated to a certain point. Now, this is in the context of you're still in that gray area where you're like, I'm still functional
Mm-hmm.
and things are kind of okay
Mm-hmm.
versus because actual burnout is you don't have the processing skills to navigate this.
No.
right? Like it's just too much. It's been overwhelmed.
Mhm.
You need to rest.
Yeah,
There's no
non-functioning.
yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting because some people, you know what it is to shake off stress? They got to talk to people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Don't call me though.
I'm gonna
Don't
call you.
don't call me. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
pick.
I feel like I'm having a hard time with it.
No.
I will say, like, prevention, like, what is it? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Like,
Mhm.
it's it's very that sort of thing, like, knowing what your yellow flags are, like, because once you hit burnout, there's nothing you can do but, like, hope and pray somebody understands what's going on and
Mhm.
can, like, help you, or you just quit.
Mhm.
Like, you're just, like, you're non-functioning at that point. When you're at total burnout, you're non-functioning.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
so knowing your yellow flags and being able to sort of mitigate that, um, on days when I can't nap, when I can't do my stress nap, I will do some other up activity but mine is not going on a walk outside. Mine
Mhm.
is, like, putting on music very loudly and singing to it.
That's fair.
And, I mean, sometimes it's go outside, sometimes it's truly time I need to go take the dog out or something, but,
Mhm.
like, lots of times it's that, because it's if I'm doing something on my phone, that's not actually, like, time away from anything, because I'm usually just adding more things onto my list in a social capacity. If I'm just like, "I need to take a break from work so I can recharge. Let me put on Discord." Oh god, there's 800 messages, and then I'm stuck there for an hour,
Yeah.
not actually
This is Dez's humble brag
providing anything.
that Dez is in charge of so many discords and he's a very important person. So
Everybody is a Burning Man right now.
lots of updates.
Lots
Yeah.
of updates
Yeah,
constantly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. It's and the one thing that you noted there too, navigating the circumstances of, again, if you have the ability to do it, if you're in a workplace that is not working for you, leave. There's other opportunities out there. There's no, it's it's going to sound very nihilistic, but it's not, I promise. But it's the understanding that what we're willing to offer in our lives to the people around us, to our industries, to what we see as our purpose, or value, or your existential, identity in this existence. Um, it's only going to matter to you if you put, like, if you make it valuable to yourself. So if you're going to go through your whole life and you're just going to keep grinding, 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 and you're not hitting these goal points, you're going to burn yourself out because you're not going to be reinforced with positive, positive vibes about these things that you want. And it's
Mhm.
about navigating too. Well, guess what? Some of those goalposts aren't real. Someone's manufactured them for society to try and pull off as well, and that's just not realistic. um it's kind of just like recognize what you want to do in your life and navigate it the best you can, but if you don't look after yourself first, what's the value in that?
Right.
Mm.
Can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I will say again, I might have to disagree a little on like you can't. Some people can't just leave, right? Um,
And that's why I
if
said if the
situa-
circumstances fit.
yeah. So I think in those cases, it can be tough, but I think a finding like a community outside of whatever it is, right? Because often when we're burnt out and we can't leave a situation, our community becomes the people we work with, right? As best you can, find a way to have a different community outside of what it is that's burning you out, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So if you can find a way to one or two other people or whatever, maybe you just go to brunch together, right? And maybe you have a book club with two other people. Maybe you have a small clan in a video game, right? Having something outside of whatever it is that's your primary focus can be a way that you can at least not be as drained as you are if you're entirely focused on one thing, right? Um, Whenever we only have one community that we go to all the time, I think that can be a hindrance a little bit to what we're doing, you know? So if you can find a way to build a different community and build relationships somewhere else outside of what you're doing, I think that can be a benefit too.
Oh yeah. And I mean, like, I feel like when it comes to, especially when you cope with stress or anxiety, it's most people are in one of two camps with maybe some exceptions. You're either a comfort person or a
Mm-hmm.
novel stimulation person,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like either trend towards coping mechanisms that just to bring me safety and comfort, or
Mm-hmm.
my coping mechanism is I must have new novel experiences to make my brain light up in different ways than the way that is currently stressing me out.
Yeah.
Alex and I are two great examples of this. Alex gets stressed out and she needs to leave the country. Um, like she gets burnt out and we got to do something totally different. All of a sudden,
Mm-hmm.
we're a retreat company, whatever. Me, when I get burnt out, I mean, I like the novel stimulation, like as sort of a regular coping mechanism in my job, but
Mm-hmm.
I trended towards comfort. Like I will rewatch the same thing over and over again. It's why I've seen every season of Critical Role multiple times
Mm-hmm.
because
Kara does quick calculations of how many hours that is.
it's thousands of hours I've counted. Uh, but it's like it's on in the background. It's something comforting. It's like something that like I can
Mm-hmm.
expect and I know what happens and it doesn't matter if I sort of weave in and out of it. I'm not really paying attention to it. Like it's something that brings me comfort and then sometimes I have a hard time consuming new media because of it. Like the media repeat is a big coping mechanism of mine. So,
Mm-hmm.
like I have one playlist with 350 songs and somewhere Alex Mitchell is clutching his pearls, but I have one singular playlist with 350 songs and it's the only one I listen to
Mm-hmm.
because I know all the songs.
Right. It's like the time warp that everyone has. Like you listen to the music in your high school years and you'll always remember them.
Mm-hmm.
I'll
What?
always remember them because I'm still listening to them actively.
Oh,
Alice,
I'm
I'm not
back on a Linkin
saying.
Park kick right now. That's where I'm
Yes.
at, right?
Yeah. Rest in
I
peace.
said, for context, I said specifically Alex Mitchell would be clutching his pearls because Alex has a playlist for every situation, for every mood, for every vibe, for every room,
This is true.
every genre, every decade.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
Um, okay, so we're coming up on an hour and a half here.
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like we're a little bit at a shift point. What do we think?
sure, yeah.
Okay.
Um,
So,
anybody in
yeah,
chat want to talk about their experiences with burnout?
love to hear some.
Or if there's
Not
a
as like a
type,
positive thing, but I'm just saying.
yeah. Or are you burned out with something right
Mhm.
now that you might benefit from a third perspective or a second perspective on?
Just chuckling a little bit at Goki's learning to stop taking offense when they call music classics on certain radio stations
Oh
that
yeah.
are your jams.
I
Um,
mean, our high school years is now considered retro. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah. um yeah, we'll
Some
give it
coworkers
a
went
minute
to
here.
uh, what are they? They went to a concert recently, and it was a band that was big in like the mid 2000s, and they came back from the concert and said, yeah, it was pretty old music, but it was still pretty good. And like,
Like,
old
what did you
music
expect?
was damn Metric. They went to a Metric concert.
Oh no.
Oh, that's cool though. That's
Oh.
great.
Yeah, no, it's cool, but they called it old. I'm like, it is,
I mean,
and I'm surprised that they're still
they
doing their
still
thing.
they still make music, but you
Yeah.
know.
But I
I
just had a
mean,
bit of an existential crisis in that moment. I'm like,
Right.
our friend Fembot just went to a Metallica concert.
hmm. Talk about a classics band, right?
Talk about the
Classics.
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 Yeah, it's basically old classical music, right?
Yeah, you know. Hessa
What they played in
says,
church.
I'm working on my burnout right now. Baked bread for the first time in a year this week.
Oh, that's
Nice.
great.
That's awesome. You know? Like
Yeah.
something you've held off for a long
Cooking.
time and now you're
Yeah.
implementing it. That's good.
Yeah,
Cooking
doing
can
something
be a
out of
really
it.
nice thing to implement. It's hard sometimes to, you know, it takes mental energy. But if you can like bake some bread or make a new recipe, that's a little way to combat something. It's
There's
creating,
something
right?
so satisfying about baking bread though. It's like
Mm,
it feels like the most base ingredient. Like, and if you can bake bread, like you can do anything.
It's like Play-Doh. It's
It's so,
playing.
it's so satisfying. It's like,
Baking
look, I
clay.
put these 4 ingredients together and I made literal food.
Yeah.
yeah.
I will say I love cooking, but if I'm on a timeline in any way, shape, or form, it is my least favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
Mm,
So if I have an afternoon and I have all the ingredients, I'm like, yeah, this feels good. Let's put some music on. We're gonna cook some good stuff. We might even bake some cookies.
yeah.
Like,
Ooh.
that's a good time. Any other time where I'm like, I have to go to work or I am so late for this thing, I'm like, power bar from the pantry,
Yeah.
bottle of soda water. Let's go. Like,
Yeah.
it's terrible. I hate it.
Shove a handful of cereal directly into my open maw, grab the
Nom,
dog,
nom,
and
nom,
run out.
nom.
Yeah. That's a yellow flag for me is like when I'm annoyed that I have to eat, I know that my mental
Oh,
health is like
yeah.
starting to
Yeah.
like
I love food.
yeah.
Like, I love food. Just
Yeah.
so good. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hessa saying used to cook and bake daily, but I was ordered food all last year. Yeah.
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 That's a yellow flag for me too. If
Yeah.
I start calling out for food and getting on takeout and stuff like that, like on a very high level,
Hmm.
something's wrong.
Yep.
If I'm scrolling through Skip the Dishes and just like trying to find something to eat, that's actually a red flag for me, right?
Yeah.
When I literally don't know what I want to eat, that's a red flag. So the thing that I've done in those moments is like I've I've decided like this is not to be mean to myself, but it's about setting a boundary, right? Which is the way I care for myself. But it's like I need to I had a conversation with my brain. I was like, "Okay, brain, we need to pick something. We can't just scroll through until we get too hungry and pick something out of random. We need to decide on something and go for it." So I made kind of like a rule with myself that like I can order whatever I want, but it has to
Mhm.
be something specific. I can't scroll through Skip the Dishes until I find something. I need to go into Skip craving falafel or craving
Oh, I see
sushi
what you mean.
or
Okay.
craving Chinese food, right? Um,
Like your Netflix queuing, but with food.
yeah,
You're
but
channel surfing, skip the
Yeah.
dishes.
yeah, but I've applied that to other aspects of my life. It's not just with food, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah,
It's with
yeah.
video games, with movies, with TV shows. It's like
Yeah.
I can't just scroll through stuff until I find something that I get desperate enough to watch, right? Because that's not actually being intuitive. It's not actually giving me something I want to do. I need to I need to work out my intuition. I need to
Mhm.
practice my intuition and follow through on I feel like a K-drama. I feel like a horror K-drama. I feel like a horror movie. I feel like a narrative video game with low stakes, right? That's the thing I'm trying to train myself to go and do
The
because
Last of Us too.
if I follow my ADHD, my neurodivergence in combination with my mental illness, right? I'm going to go down some unhealthy coping mechanisms, right? I'm going to return to stuff that's not going to work for me, right? I need to change the narrative,
Right. And I
right?
think this is a good point to make a reminder. Burnout is not the same thing as mental illness.
Hmm.
No,
Burnout,
burnout is a temporary state.
a
Yep.
temporary state. It's very, very important for people who are experiencing burnout to start recognizing, is this burnout or is this something else? Right? Is
Mm-hmm.
this has this actually been going on for 6+ months, or
Mhm.
has this just been the last 2 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say it's a temporary state with a distinct cause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just want to put it out there because sometimes we might be talking about something and you're like, "Oh, that sounds familiar."
No,
Well, it it
I mean, it shares a
you
lot
gotta
of the
figure it out.
same bones as anxiety and depression.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Like, but it's temporary.
it's temporary. It's a bounce back eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that's just something to keep
it's a
in
thing
tune
you
with
can
yourself.
fix.
If it keeps going, it is something else.
Yeah,
Yeah. It might not be burnout,
Right.
right?
I will say,
Because
just to because we were talking about the ordering of food being a sort of yellow flag. That is not necessarily a universal yellow flag.
no, that's
Um,
mine. That's Joe's.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know people who like um not eating is their yellow or red flag.
Mm-hmm.
So like they have to order food, otherwise they just won't eat
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
because it's
Mhm.
like they just
Yeah.
don't have time or the energy to cook. So it's
Yeah.
like, no, give
Yeah.
yourself permission to order out. If eating is the issue,
Mhm.
figure out around that. Whether that's
Yeah.
ordering
Well,
out and then adjusting, whether it's making time to cook once a week, you know, prep
Yeah.
meal prep.
Yeah. It's a stimulus thing for me. So um, I know that I'm in red flag zone when I have too much stimulus going on.
Yeah.
So when I have Destiny going, I'm listening to music while I play Destiny. I'm in between missions scrolling through my phone and having, a beer or whiskey on the side. Like there's four inputs happening in one moment, right? To
Stop calling
me,
me out like
it's that's a problem area for me, right? Um, it might not be. I mean, that might be how other people function, but for me, as an ADHD person, um, newness is really good for a dopamine hit. So anything new and constant newness is what my brain craves, but I can't have constant newness. That's not possible,
no.
right? You can't just always have new inputs. You can try, but at the end of the day, you're going to run out of Netflix shows, right? You can
Yeah.
watch 5 minutes of everything on Netflix, and you will still, there's a finite amount of things that you can watch, right? Um, so that's the other conversation I had to have with myself. And again, a boundary I had to set with myself. It's like, we can't pursue newness. I know newness feels really good, right? When I find new shit, oh, the dopamine hit from that is amazing. But it's unsustainable. I can't always have new things, right? So the other conversation I had to have with myself is like, look, we're gonna play some Destiny and we're gonna enjoy it. I don't we're this is what we're gonna do, right? Again, it's about setting that boundary for myself because if I let my brain go where it wants to go, we're gonna go in some unhealthy directions. So yeah.
Um, Kara, will you highlight Goki's most recent comment so I can lightly scold Goki?
uh-oh, here we go.
The 2-week cross country trip with running a conference in the middle of it is how I deal with burnout. Adding more stressful things to your already stressful activity is not going to relieve your burnout. I understand this impulse. I understand it a lot. It's like, well, I've got like 4 projects right now, but if I started this new project, then I could focus on that and then let those other 4 projects not
It'll add
be
creative
priority.
energy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll feel inspired to go back to those other 4 projects
Mhm.
eventually, right?
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Speaking of procrastination.
Yeah, let's talk about that?
Hmm. Often linked to burnout.
Yeah,
Um,
there's lots of things it's linked to.
this
Sure.
is
Yeah.
this is the part of the podcast where I let you guys know that I have found us a sponsor. This week's sponsor is Procrastination. This 8.5 week break was
Yep.
8+ week break was brought to you by Procrastination.
Can we go back to the very beginning of the stream where we can highlight Xandra's comment about honoring the procrastination gods?
Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We have definitely put in a good
Yeah.
a
bid
tithe.
with them.
I think we have sufficiently honored the procrastination gods by putting off this podcast by two-ish months. Yeah.
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 Now, like, part of that was like a for real, like we just needed like a second to be like, break. And then, it's sort of one of those things where it's like other stuff comes up, and then this thing sort of goes and sits on the back burner, and then
Yeah.
Des is dealing with a bunch of stuff. So, you know, um, and it's hard. It's hard to come back from procrastinating for a thing
Hmm.
and then like having to basically jump back into it like the gap didn't happen.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It is.
Procrastination is in itself like a coping mechanism that doesn't help you cope. It's the worst coping mechanism.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, again, as an ADHD haver, we're people with ADHD are well integrated and we understand procrastination on a very fundamental level. There's like tasks become these like things that are like impending doom. Having anxiety doesn't help either. But then we do the task. The task takes like 15 minutes, and then we're like, why the fuck was I even worried about that? But then we
Exactly.
forget that we were even worried about it, and the next time that rolls around, we're have this impending doom again, right? So it's a constant battle, but it is important to take a moment and reflect on, hey, that thing you were worried about actually took only 15 minutes, or maybe it was tough, but life went on, right? um, you did the thing, and be buy yourself a little snack for doing the thing, like find a way to celebrate that you did the thing if it took you a little bit to do the thing. I think that's a way to respond to procrastination, because there's a lot of shame associated with it. Even if
Oh
you end,
yeah.
even if you end up doing the thing, you still feel like a piece of shit for not having done the thing.
Oh yeah. How many overnight editing sessions have I done because I've procrastinated something to the very, very bitter end?
Yeah.
And then imagine this, okay? I'm here. I'm sitting here. I'm working. Now zoom out, just like to my street, to my community, to my city, and then you just see a little like nuclear explosion that happens
Mm-hmm.
because I just have to get the work done. But
Mhm.
that's my brain exploding
Mm-hmm.
because it's just like now it has to hit into overdrive and try to fix this thing or finish this thing or start this thing. And then I'm screaming into the ether at 3 a.m.
Yep.
Being like, what the fuck was wrong with you? Why didn't you do this 3 days ago?
Yeah.
And you're like, because 3 days ago I was really fucking tired and couldn't really do anything. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I get the cycle of kind of shame that's attached to that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Me and like I struggle. I don't know why. I'm gonna therapize for a second. I struggle so hard with getting my fucking edits done. My video edits are fine because they go up at a specific time. But if nobody's giving me like a hey, this edit's got to be done by this time, I will put it off for literally years.
Mm-hmm.
I have edits from like 2020 I haven't done yet. Which is why this week is my procrastination penance week because Alex is out of town, so I am doing nothing but photo shoot edits from last year.
Yeah. I mean, I think I got you, Des. I still have like vlogs from 2017 that I still haven't finished. So
I mean, that's fair.
it's
I
a
still
long
haven't
time ago.
finished my Canadian vlog. That was January.
Yeah. Gotta make it a priority.
I
Mhm.
know. I
Get it?
know.
This is exactly it. Hello, post procrastination regret, my old friend.
It's
That's how
the like it's the shitty cousin of post nut clarity.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's 100% it. It's just like this little like gremlin that like pops out at 3 a.m. post edit and just like sits on my desk and goes, "Did it again, didn't you?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Shut your mouth,
Yeah.
you little shit." And then starts picking its nails. I just
Oh, not to mention the fact that I have procrastinated a project will prevent me from starting future projects. So I'm literally doing
yeah,
nothing
that's true too.
Yeah. Yeah.
because I'm like, I can't do another photo shoot right now. I got 8 photo shoots I haven't edited yet.
Yeah, I don't know, hard drive banks just going on back there, and they're collecting insurance right now on
Mhm.
my uncompleted projects. That's what's happening.
Well, again, that's where the new project comes in to save everything, right?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
stop it.
The new
That's where we
project.
just become a retreat company and we start selling, I don't know, fancy soaps.
Soap can be a very good industry to get into. Just saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll get right on that. I might have to
You
put it
know,
off for a few weeks, but
we'll start our own fight club.
I mean, like to really just get my procrastination shame out there because it feels cathartic. I still haven't uploaded the last 2 episodes of this podcast that we've been on break
yay.
for. Oh, to the point where I have now lost an episode. The travel episode was
Oh no!
recorded off and then it became deleted from my Twitch because I forgot about it.
It's
I know.
gone.
Rip.
Well, if you
Rip.
Rip,
were there for the travel episode, know that you've seen the lost episode for all eternity. So
which is which is why I'm downloading everything immediately from now on. Because that was totally my bad. But
it's
yeah,
fine.
just the
It's fine.
procrastination shame is the worst part of the procrastination because like it's
Mhm.
good and it's healthy to prioritize. Like you need to figure out what's important and what's not important, and it is okay to put things off that are like not as important. It's the anxiety around like putting the thing off or restarting the thing once it has been put off that is so debilitating.
Mhm.
Hmm,
Yeah.
That sucks.
this is true.
Well, and I want to throw out there too. What about like the long term things that you put off, like things that you're like, I always wanted to do this. Because to me, to be perfectly honest, I'm going to throw writing up there, right?
Mhm.
Writing is still this thing that I really want to do, but it I can't get it started, you know, and there's just this persistent shame around not having started it, or I've started and stopped it, right? Um, all that kind of stuff, and so I don't know. It's this constant battle, right? Where it's like, oh, I need to just an hour. I gotta find an hour, and then suddenly the day's gone, and I didn't find the hour
Yeah.
every day, you know, um, and I don't know. I'm not sure what's getting in the way, and I admit maybe this is like a therapy thing I got to work out, but like there's blocks. Some of the blocks are pretty obvious. Like I have um, I can't be good at it immediately block, um,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is something a lot of people are familiar with, right? If you're not immediately good at something, fuck it, or you're not even going to attempt it. But um, I don't know. It's just like trying to get that process started is sometimes the hardest fucking thing in the world, you know?
Especially with something that is an artistic endeavor or sort of
Mm-hmm.
a like a more ephemeral concept, something that doesn't have like a direct step 1, step 2, step 3.
Yeah.
Like you you know, feeling the need to be in a mood to create art
Yeah.
is often something I see a lot of artists sort of get stuck in, where it's like they're like, I'm not in the mood to do it, like, I need to feel inspired by something,
Mm-hmm.
blah.
Mm-hmm.
But, even art is like a practice thing.
Yeah.
It's like
It's skill
it's
set.
yeah, you have to write even when you're not feeling like writing. Like you have to take pictures even when you don't feeling like taking pictures. Like it's because if you don't work that muscle, then it never gets better.
Yeah.
And that like that can be intimidating. Like
Hmm.
just sucking at something for a long time or having to do a thing that feels because so often in society, especially with art, it's like, oh, it's something for you, or it's something that's like not monetarily making any money, then it
Hmm.
seems like frivolous.
Yeah.
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 And then we're not encouraged to work at it or put the time into it.
Yeah. Well, and then like another thing that I've noticed through therapy is that I have this um pleasing people or the approval of others was how I got validation, right? And so if I'm not doing something for somebody else, then I have a hard time finding that energy to do it, you know? So like I've started swimming and like not just swimming, but like drills and like working toward a thing. This is the first time in like years that I've started doing something just for myself, you know? Um, I'm not measuring myself against somebody else. I'm not doing it for somebody else. I'm not doing it for performance or anything like that. But it's taken me 6 years to get here. Like, and a lot of like stuff had to fall into place for it. So, um, yeah, I don't know. Again, it's just a thing that I've noticed that like it's the first time that I'm doing something not for somebody else, you know? And I think there's transferable things that I need to apply to writing, you know, that I'm doing
Yeah.
for swimming. But it's still hard because like you say, Des, it's art, it's pointless. I mean, even swimming, right? There's still like again, we live in a very fat phobic kind of thing. There's still things that people are commenting on for the swimming thing,
Yeah,
right?
there's like a social benefit to being physically fit enough to swim.
Yeah,
Like and
right.
like you're working towards like a physical fitness goal or something. Like there's a value judgment on looking a certain way,
Yeah,
so it doesn't, feel as frivolous.
yeah. But with writing, you don't gain a muscle. Well, you do, right? But it's not something that people are that's visible per se.
Mhm.
And and again, there from the performance side of things, if I go and write a best-selling novel, people are like, "Oh, that was great that you did that writing thing," right? But if I just write for myself, it's something like Halibut saying here, like there's no external pressure or reinforcement or whatever
Mhm.
that's validating the effort. And that's I think what I need to get my head around or what other people might need to work on or whatever, right? So I don't know.
Yeah. Halibut Barnes said it's more of a struggle when there's no accountability to anyone else. So stuff like cleaning, health checkups, etc. slip a ton for me because hey, who cares? I'm the only one who has to live with it.
Yeah.
Yep, I
Yeah.
feel that 1,000,000%.
Flossing, dental care, fucking
Yeah.
dental care. I hate that I have teeth. I hate it.
I hate
Oh
that my
no.
teeth are
I
inefficient.
love dental hack. Like I love it. I love going to the dentist.
No,
It's my favorite
you.
thing.
Nothing has ever convinced me that we are opposite people more than that sentence that just came out of your mouth.
But seriously
Uh,
though, I think it's mostly because I've never had a bad experience at well, that's not actually true. I've had one terrible experience at the dentist, but it wasn't for cleaning. So
mhm.
I
Well,
couldn't count the amount of times that I've cried at the dentist on 2 hands.
well, that's sad.
Yeah.
I worked so a friend and a former coworker. She also loves the dentist.
Yeah, I love it. I
Yeah.
love the feeling of like walking out of the dentist and your teeth are like super smooth and clean. Oh, it's great. I love it.
Well, she's saying because the dentist is always like, "Wow, your dental hygiene's so great," you
Well,
know?
I mean, that's what I get. So maybe
Yeah.
that's why.
No, no, I
Yeah.
know. Again, that
I've gotten
validation.
negatively reinforced my entire
Yeah,
life.
yeah. My dentist is like, "Do you brush? Do you floss? What the fuck is going on in your mouth?" Like, I
I've
try.
gotten one
I'm
compliment
sorry.
ever from a dental hygienist, and it was right immediately after the pandemic, my first dentist appointment back after the pandemic. She was like, "You haven't gone to the dentist in 2 years?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "There's nothing on your teeth." And I was like, "Oh, it's because I bought this shit that toothpaste that you're using, the really gritty stuff. I bought that online, and I've just been doing that."
Oh,
She was like, "What?" She didn't even know you could buy it online. Guess what, kids? Fuck the American health system. You can buy that gritty toothpaste that the dentist use. You can buy it online. Just don't use it all the time. You know, use it like every month or so. It's fine. It'll help get some of the outer plaque off your teeth.
There
Sorry.
you go.
That's my I hate dentist PSA. Do it yourself.
I'm just
I
saying
hate
because
dentists too.
here's the thing. It's like probably the only place that I've ever had like really positive physical comments about something on my body from a healthcare professional.
Kara's like, let me have this.
Let me have this, please.
Kara, you are welcome to it. I hate the dentist. You can have all the dentist
can have
praise
all
in
the
the
good
My
world.
dentist
dental
memories.
hygienist, she's like the absolute best. And then we found out that we used to like swim at the swim meets when we were kids. It was bonkers when we figured that
Is
out.
your dentist very cute? Is that why you like the dentist?
She
Or
is
your
very
dental
cute,
hygienist.
but definitely not my type. So that's not the issue there. No, we get along quite well. It's kind of like
Can't
this really
deadlift
interesting
150.
thing. Huh?
Can't deadlift 150.
I don't know what you're talking about. These guns are the only guns that I own. So, and I'm joining a gym next month, so wish me luck.
Aw.
So,
Proud of you.
Good luck.
don't mind me. Gonna go get buff,
Yes.
get my strength back. Anyway.
You
I was just
know,
thinking,
Yeah,
Go
gym
ahead, Des.
rats. Gym
gym
rats.
rats. Procrastination. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
no, I was just gonna
Don't do
say, I
it.
think
I mean,
don't
we
know.
procrastinated procrastination there pretty darn fucking good with the whole
Yeah.
dental.
Oh, that's
talking.
another thing.
Oh.
Doing something like not doing something new, but just doing another thing as a
Oh,
coping
yeah.
mechanism, like cleaning, procrastination cleaning. My house
Yes.
is never,
Mm.
my apartment is
Yes.
never more clean than when I have
I
nothing
go
to
find
do.
things that I've been putting off for like here's the thing. I actually use procrastination sometimes as a tool to get things done that I've been procrastinating about. Like it's meta procrastination.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there'll be things that I've like set aside in my garage. I'm like, okay, I have to like fix this pot that cracked and I need to like put the glue on it just to set it and blah blah blah. And it's been sitting there for 6 months. But then I get a project that's due the next day and I'd be like, you know what I gotta do right now? I gotta go fix that pot. And I do. And
You know,
then
you,
it's done.
you know what I do? To avoid emotionally processing things, I will clean or do other tasks.
All right,
I'll go
that's fair.
shopping, right?
Yeah.
So when I like have a tough conversation with somebody, or
Mm.
I got to be honest with myself about something, or whatever, nothing gets cleaned quicker than when I have to do that kind of shit. That's my turtling, right? When
Mhm.
I swallowed my truth, when I didn't speak my truth to somebody, I'm cleaning hours after. Like I'm cleaning,
Interesting.
I'm doing groceries, I'm finally cleaning out that fucking drawer that never gets cleaned. I will do everything but emotionally process what happened. So, yeah.
My procrastination is almost never productive. Like, I do like I clean my apartment, but like there's only so many, like I have like a 600 square foot apartment. There's not a ton I can do here.
Mhm.
Most of my chores are done in 2 hours. So there's not a ton I can do. And sometimes if I'm too close to the work thing, it makes me think about the work thing that I'm not doing. So you know what I end up doing? I end up binge watching YouTube. And that's why I know so many weird things.
Hmm.
I
I'm
mean,
putting
I
in
feel
some-
like we're the YouTube generation, really.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
if you were born between 85 and 2000,
Yeah.
YouTube is like the ultimate procrastination tool
Mhm.
out there. Like you don't want to focus on something, you just go to YouTube and you type something in and then you just look at that suggest bar on the side and you just
I don't even have to type anything in. YouTube already knows what I want to watch.
Yeah.
well, yes, we know the robots know.
I've got 15 years of algorithm.
Mm.
It knows exactly what I want.
Am I the only one who clears my search and watch history so that doesn't like go
Oh,
weird?
they
What
still
now?
keep that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just clears it for your side. They
Yeah,
log all that stuff.
it just
They
clears
can do
your
that,
shame.
whatever.
It doesn't clear the shame.
Oh, that's fair.
It knows.
It
You
I've
can
watched
go and like I do occasionally will go look up certain things like on in incognito mode just to see what a normal person would get in response to it, especially if it's something political. It's
Right.
like, I know YouTube is gonna bias towards whatever my bias is, so I will
Yeah.
go and search it in
Yeah.
incognito mode
I
so that
clear it out when I start seeing weird things in my suggested side, and then it does reset for the most part.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It still knows though. It keeps
Yeah.
track of everything.
I was just say I've lost many early morning hours to the fucking recommended videos section of YouTube, especially while under the influence of substances. I bought some great music that way. I wake up to like I spent how much on music? Oh, this is actually pretty good. So drunk me has
because
some good taste in music, I guess.
right.
But it's not a good coping mechanism. It's not a good
No,
way to go about things, people.
it's
Just
fun.
saying. Yeah. It might not
That's not
be
good.
totally painful or whatever, but
Oh no, it's painful. It's
not
always
a good coping
painful.
mechanism. Long
Oh
run.
yeah. I feel terrible whenever I finally have to go do the thing that I actually have to do, which is what I
Yeah.
have to remind myself. It's so I've been talking with my therapist a lot about positive reframing, and one of the things that I've sort of started doing is sort like as a thought, I don't know, experiment sort of thing, whatever. Um I just think of future me as a different person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I'm doing things now to take care of future me because future me
Yeah.
is a lazy dumbass who's not going to get it done. I cannot trust future me to do it. Future me has proven from every day that future me is just not going to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Present me has to do it. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Future me's a dumbass. And future
Yeah.
me needs constantly taken care of.
One thing that changed my life was it's called Unfuck Your Habitat. It was a Tumblr account. This is dating me right now. Remember Tumblr, folks? Anyways, it's called Unfuck Your Habitat. And one of the things they had was Unfuck Your Morning. And so that was preparing the day before, like your work stuff, your lunch, your work clothes if you want. But getting everything set up the night before so that your morning was unfucked. Um, so similar to Dez's thinking about future you, um, it's good to unfuck things for future you, right? So some of the ways that I've been reframing some of my fitness stuff to try and stay away from like all the stuff that's negative stuff associated with is like future me will appreciate that I kept up with my physical fitness, you know? So that's something that I'm looking at, you know? So again, I think to be totally honest with myself, I need to think about future me with the writing stuff, you know? Future me will be happy that I put in the work now, right?
Future you will look back and be like, hey, this is a cool thing I wrote.
Yeah. Thanks for doing the
Or
work.
or they'll look back on it and be like, wow, this really sucked. I can do better.
Yep. Yep.
Usually.
But again,
What I do.
it's on to me to be shitty now so that future me can be awesome, right?
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to procrastinate to the day I die. Like there's
You're
there's
even going
no
to procrastinate death.
that would be interesting. That would be a very interesting thing.
Hey, you know what? I'm gonna live forever. So far, so good.
I'm waiting for the ghost in the shell thing to happen. Okay, just
I would
download
love
my
that
brain
too.
into a little brain box.
Oh, I am.
Yep.
Oh, one of the things
You
I've
know,
picked up in the last 8+ weeks we've been on break is I have been listening to a podcast called Old Gods of Appalachia, and it makes me want to be a forest bog witch.
Hmm.
And it's brilliant. Everybody should go listen to it. If you like horror anthologies, they're great. And
yeah,
so now I feel like I've always just been a creature, but I feel like I'm more vibing towards timeless forest bog witch.
interesting.
In terms of like evolutions, there was something like there was Bog Witch was like a part of this list that it was like things we're aspiring to be, and one of them was like shuddering, shaking void, and I think that's the thing I'm gravitating towards
Okay.
to be a shapeless, shuddering, shapeless void. Yeah.
Yeah, I like
Interesting.
Yeah.
But what about procrastinating doing nothing?
Well, hey, that's the thing though, and this one thing to be a little bit in tuned with, like notice the things, like be self-aware in a moment of procrastination and realize what
Mhm.
it is you're actually doing. Because sometimes it might surprise you what your brain is being like, you know what? I actually think this is more interesting to do right now for a reason.
Yeah.
It might be worthwhile to lean into a little bit later, but not in that moment, obviously, because in that moment we have shit to do. But I'm just saying, if you have a moment of self-awareness in that procrastination blinders go time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because you can figure out like what are the things you trend towards when you go to procrastinate. Like, is it
Yeah.
watching YouTube videos? Is there like an easy solution to that? Like, I don't use it very often, but I do have a browser extension that does block certain websites from my browser between certain hours of the day,
Mhm.
and I will use that if I really need to hone into a project and I need to have like zero distractions. I will put a bunch of websites on block, and my browser will not access them for whatever, however
Mhm.
many hours I put on there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah.
I mean, what greater example of procrastination than the infamous dragon stream that hasn't happened yet?
The Dragon Stream?
Yes, dragon stream. Dragon
Y
stream.
Kara's car stream.
Uh,
Yeah. It's as elusive as a dragon.
it is as elusive as dragon. I have the pieces to actually do it now, and instead of me just being like, I should do, this work that my clients ask me, I'd be like, you know what? Maybe I'm a client. No,
I
maybe
can
I
be a
get to be
client?
a client. Huh?
Yeah.
Am I a client? No. I don't know. How do you even define that really? When I work on my
Well,
own things, am I
I
being
mean,
my own client?
there's sort of a pretty easy mathematical like, what is your hourly rate? How much do you have extra outside of your bills and how much you need? Can you
Mhm.
afford to pay yourself your own hourly rate to fuck off?
I'm not gonna answer that on stream.
No, I know, but I'm
No, but
saying
it's a
like
good way to think about it.
that's like the math equation you do in your head. It's like,
The
Yeah.
answer is no.
well, then you can't fuck off.
No! But I want to.
Also, recognize when your brain needs to procrastinate. Like
Mhm.
your
Mm.
brain needs to put something down. Because our
Yeah.
brains can only like actually focus on something for something like 45 minutes. Like beyond that, it's like you're constantly losing focus and doing other things. It's it's one of those office wisdom things where it's like take a break every 10-minute break every 45 minutes just to put your
Mhm.
refocus so you can be tight and just
Mhm.
efficient for 45 minutes, be sort of loosey goosey for 10, and then be tight and efficient for 45 minutes. And like and giving your brain more frequent little breaks
Mhm.
prevents you from having to take a long break or being forced into a long break because your brain just can't focus anymore.
Yeah. 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 These things exist for a reason, and a lot of it is connected to a nervous system that has no consciousness, right? Um, so it is just reacting to situations, and sometimes it is good to trust that
Right.
intuition,
Yeah,
right?
that's fair.
Um, Again, procrastination is a bit of a pain in the ass, but not to go back to the anti-capitalist thing, but like procrastination is also something that gets mislabeled as resting, right? Um, so sometimes we need to take a rest. So,
Sometimes you need that stress nap.
yep. Sometimes you need that break. Sometimes you need to put something off, you know?
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
Um,
But we're at 2 hours.
having said that,
Yeah.
we are at our 2 hours for the stream.
Before we go, you need to explain what Dragon Stream is because Hespule is asking.
Oh, okay. So this started off as an inside joke. I need
Oh, it's 11 o'clock.
Yep.
oh yeah, your lights went off. I need Xander here to help me with the memory portion of this. But what was it? There was one day that I was streaming with my phone, and I was driving and streaming at the same time, and I like had the phone in my hands and I was driving like this. It was very unsafe. It was very, very,
I do remember this.
Kara.
very unsafe. But I was like, look how amazing this sunset is on my way home from work. Like, this is so cool. I might as well share it with people. And so after that, and on some other subsequent streams, I was like, you know what would be really cool is if I attach like a pretty good camera to my vehicle and stream through my laptop from my mobile phone. So I can like stream on the go, but using like really good camera visuals. And basically, I don't know where the name came from anymore. Oh,
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This is the rule
I
of the
think it was
internet.
because I was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna be like in my car driving around and just be this like mythical traveler or whatever. And I don't know if that like branched off to like just be dubbed the Dragon Stream. But yeah, oh, Xander, you're saying you're the wrong person. I hastily made a graphic with it. I don't know. Yeah, sorry. This one it didn't get clipped, so I don't know the history exactly from where
It's
this came
lost.
from.
It's lost to the internet.
It's lost in the internet, but it was
That's
dubbed
fine.
Dragon Stream, and it's become mythical in its sense because I've just never done it. It's very capable. I'm very capable of doing it, and I've attempted twice, but it just never happened.
One time we thought you died.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was the first one. Because I remember I was streaming and the phone died as I was turning around. Like, so the timing was terrible. Like, it basically looked like I just like turned into traffic, and all you hear at the end of my stream is "Oh fuck," and
And then just black.
just done.
I'm
So,
frantically texting you like, "Are you okay?"
yeah, and I was just like plugging it in. I was trying to start it up again, but it wouldn't work anyway. And then it was bad. Should never do that again.
Well, now
Um,
you have a goal to do
yeah.
Dragon Stream.
yeah.
Um, modern GoPro can stream to the internet with any available uplink. Good to know, Goki. Good to know.
One less barrier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't remember. I remember it being a very good reason to call it a Dragon stream. That's what I do remember. I was like, it was this epiphany moment.
It was just us calling it mythical.
Yes. It'll happen one day. I keep saying that, but it will. It just
Someday I
don't
will
know
stream
when.
video games again.
Huh? Oh,
So
for you?
someday I
Yeah.
will
Is
stream
that
video
your
games.
mythical stream?
Yeah. Sticking to literally any video game.
Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, there's lots of. Here's the frustrating thing, and I know this is so tangent, but like, there's so many ideas I want to do for myself. Maybe I need to put myself as like a client. Like maybe that's the mindset I have
Yeah.
to be in. There's so many creative things I want to make for YouTube, and I just don't do it because I don't put myself as a priority because I
I feel that.
clients pay me money, lots of money. So I pay my mortgage. But anyway, that's not the point. I don't know why I'm talking about finances. That's ridiculous. That's not the point. I
Well,
need to prioritize my creative endeavors on YouTube.
I like this idea that Hespiel has put in chat here that you need to prioritize spray painting fantasy art onto the side of your vehicle. So your Acura needs to have a fantasy
Mm.
dragon on the
Mhm.
side of it. Like you
Maybe I
need to
need to
lean
get
into
like
it.
a decal made or like a
Yeah.
sticker.
Some vinyl. Get some vinyl put on there.
Just call it a decal?
Yeah,
A decal?
we call it a decal.
Oh my gosh, Canadians are so weird.
It's a decal.
It's a decal. Uh-oh. We're going to go down that road now.
That's What is it, Chad? Is it decal
It's
or
just
is it
like,
decal?
okay, here's the thing. So
No.
Des and I were on this like
We don't have time for that kind of
this
debate.
documentary thing, and I remember one night we were like did all the like Canadianisms versus Americanisms, and it lasted like 3 hours. We really went down a list. It was comprehensive.
Yeah.
Like Americans have no idea what we're talking about when we say garburator. They're like,
Nope. I still
what
don't
the
know.
fuck is that? That's garbage disposal,
Oh.
like in a sink.
Gosh.
And I remember one time I was like, "Yeah, I went in and I went in a parkade," and they're like, "What the fuck is a parkade?" I'm like, "It's a parking lot, like a parking."
It did sometimes on the dock trip. It did feel like a foreign language exchange.
Yeah, a little bit. Anyway, there's lots to talk about with that.
Yeah.
When, yeah. Anyway, Dragon Stream will happen.
Someday.
Wait for it.
Someday. Joe, what are you doing? What are you up to? What's your life? As we're sort
Well,
of
I gotta
wrapping
figure
this
it
up.
out. I've been playing Spirit Fair the last little while. And we're not quite done, so I might stream some stuff next week, but my official like September schedule is going to kick off the second week of September. So I was going to put a blast in the Discord a couple days from now. So, but I might be taking a break next week, except for 2NPC. That's still happening.
Yeah.
But Tara?
Does oh
yes.
Kara's
Somebody
procrastinating.
talk.
Okay, well, tomorrow back into KOTOR. We are making it happen.
How
in
long
there.
have you been playing this fucking game?
KOTOR?
Yes.
It's a long
you know?
game. It's a
long game.
40-hour game. It's
Yeah. We made so much progress last time. It was phenomenal.
I feel like you've been playing KOTOR for 2 years.
Well, I played KOTOR 1.
Oh,
and
okay.
finished that.
Maybe
and
I'm
then
just
this is KOTOR
putting
2.
that all in one game because I don't really watch the KOTOR streams.
Fine. Yeah, so no. It's the next adventure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go have fun with some Mandalorians now. So let's go.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's tomorrow night, and then 2NPC.
Mhm.
And yeah, the rest is big question mark.
Yeah. Feel that.
Des, what's going on?
There is like a 10 to 25% chance I will be streaming on Friday. It really depends if I can figure out how to stream my Switch because Ciara Lynch is out of town for Burning Man, so I promised the nerds of that Discord a Mario Kart night. Whether that's just in the Discord or whether that's on my stream, I have no idea. It will truly depend on how much work I get done. But other than that, just 3NPC for a little bit, I think. I think I might, I did update some of my stuff in OBS and I might come back. I need to find like a good single player game that I can just vibe and not really have to pay attention to too hard. Because that's really what I want.
That's fair.
Oh, fair enough.
I want a game that's all vibes. What else am I doing? I don't know. I'm on the internet. Oh, well, I'm here.
Oh yeah. Hold on. If you know people who are chill, you should send them and hang out with us, you know?
Yep.
We have one rule about our Discord. Don't be an arsehole. That better work. I swear that link better work. I've worked so hard on trying to catch all of the things where I changed my invite link. I think I've filtered them all out now. But
yeah.
Yeah,
but,
Joe, put your stuff in here.
Yeah, put your socials in. People feel free to. My Twitter is 18 plus. I do make the porns, and I share the porns.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my Twitch.
You can just put your link tree in there. That's probably easier.
My link tree is not updated, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But the links on my Twitch are updated, so.
Okay, all right.
That's a good reminder for me to update my link tree.
Yes.
Yeah, I have not done that. I've not done that in a little bit. I forgot
I
I
did
had.
update my face. I don't know that I talked about it, but I have new holes in my face from the last time people saw me.
Yes, you do have new holes in your face.
I hope
Mhm.
everybody likes them. And if they don't like them, that's fine because I love them.
I've been feeling the tattoo withdrawal recently. Like, look at this hand. This hand is naked.
Get a
This hand,
piercing.
it needs
It's a
another
good
tattoo.
fix. It's a good like cheaper fix. Get a piercing.
I want a tattoo. Do you want a tattoo? Because this one's good.
Oh,
This one needs one. So
It's true.
yeah, maybe all the way up the arm, forearm kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna wrap this up now, kids.
Now we're just talking.
Before I start losing money. Yeah.
We'll figure out what our next show is. So usually pre this break, we did every other Monday. And it'll just depend on work schedules.
Yeah, we're a little bit. I think we're gonna be a little bit spontaneous with the next few.
Yeah, because I
Because
also have a huge trip in November.
yeah, and I'm gone for most of the second half of September for work. So we'll see about how this.
So there
all
might be
shakes
another
out.
sabbatical on our future.
No, probably not.
No, we're just gonna be a little loosey goosey with the schedule.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hey, maybe people who have missed it before because of the every other night on Monday schedule can maybe get it now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm making a commitment to get the YouTube updated. So
Thank you, Des.
that is
Ooh, and we also have new graphics that we have to put up. So we'll have to figure that out for
Yeah.
next time too.
Courtesy of someone in our Discord.
Yeah, Arthur for
Yeah.
Bitsuji.
Bitsuji.
Did some really cool stuff for us. So we're gonna put that up next time.
Yeah.
So appreciate it.
I'm literally calling us ourselves out so that we get
Yes, like we made a public commitment.
Yes.
Now I'm much more likely to do it.
Okay.
That's how I was going about that. Okay.
Good.
Cool. Because I'm streaming, I get to say stay cool and stay strong out there. Don't you dare, Joe.
Stay moist.
No.
It's courtesy of Val, another one of our members of our Discord and friend.
Also, yeah, send
moist.
Val some love right now. If you have Val as a friend on any platform, just send her a little heart. I can't disclose, but just send her a little heart message. If you're in the Discord, just go at VWees and send a heart.
Yeah.
She'd love that. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.